Righto, cuzzies. Welcome back to Bush Yarns with your mate Neville Thistlebark. Now, usually I'm talking dogs, deer, or rural yarns. But today we're saddling up for something a bit different. We're diving into the world of horse trekking. The training, the triumphs, the wipeouts, and the way these big, beautiful animals can lift our spirits when times get tough. So pull up a stump, boil the billy, and get ready for a ride, 'cause this yarn's gonna be one heck of a trek. So tell us, Becs, what got you into horses in the first place? Was it the love of riding, the freedom of the trek, or just cheaper than a Hilux back in the day?
Well, I don't know if it was cheaper than a Hilux back in the day, but I've always sort of loved horses, I think. You know, I can always sort of remember them being around. So I used to spend a lot of time with my dad, and he had this horrible horse called Chew. She'd buck, and, you know, she was that guy. She'd chase you in the paddock, and she was just horrible. But when you're on her back, it was a different story. And I think I always looked for that, and I still do. You know, being in the saddle, and you're just your own person, and you're off and about, and yeah, it's pretty magical. And they're not cheap. They're definitely not cheaper than a Hilux now either.
Every horse has a personality. Some cheeky, some stubborn, some loyal as. What's the funniest or most memorable horse you've worked with?
Oh, I've had a few memorable ones. I think my favourite one out of all of them, Indy, her name was, and she was this pretty little paint. And I remember when I rang up to look at her, because I'd seen a photo and I thought, oh, yeah, she's a bit of me, you know. And I rang them up, and the first thing they said was, oh, she's young and she's been broke. She's been turned out for 6 months, so she might need to be restarted. Anyone that's got horses knows that's a big red flag. But I decided, no, I'm going to take her anyway. And I'll tell you what, you put one foot in that stirrup, she's this little old nana horse. And as soon as you put your foot in the stirrup and put your weight in it, she would lean back on her hindquarters and she would bolt like the clappers, and you could, you know, you're half in the saddle and half off the saddle, and but once you got on, she was amazing if you could get on, and but she was probably one of my most favourite horses, because you get to some of these really tricky places, and you think to yourself, mate, I shouldn't be going down here. You know, this is life or death. But this little pony would get you to the bottom pretty safely. But then once you're at the bottom, she would bolt like the clappers and you couldn't pull her up again. So she definitely had her quirks.
What's the gnarliest mishap you've had out on a trek? Did the horse bolt, the saddle break, or did Neville just fall off because he was too busy waving at the tui?
So we'd gone into the Arataha School fundraising trek, where we rode through some pretty rough country all the way down to a little cowboy town settlement there. This is probably one of the more recent treks, or, you know, recent, it was still a few years ago, but it was down the old Orataha Valley there, and I had been working two of our horses. Me and my partner were going riding, and he's sort of like the guy that wants the horse just ready to get on, so I'd been working these two horses, and they were fit, and we were ready to go, and then my horse pulled up lame the day before. And so I thought, oh, shit, you know, what am I going to do here? And so I had this other thing, and he was big, 17, two-hand high show pony, show horse, never been on a trek in his life in the bush. And I thought, oh, he'll do, you know, we'll take him. My husband was going to ride him because he's a big, strong horse, and my husband got on him, and the first 2 seconds I came around the corner, my husband's off, and he goes, I'm not going to say on here because a bit of some swear words, but He said, I'm not riding that bugger. And so I swapped horses with him. And then he was off. He was happy as. Now this thing, 17, 2 hands, had a mouth like was so hard that nothing could stop him. And he wanted to be up the front, and he didn't care whether he was running over top of all these other horses, and he was pushing past people. And then we get to the top of this cliff, and it was me and old Blue Hall riding next to me, and he was giving me a bit of stick about this blooming horse that I had, and I'm in the middle of a conversation with Blue, and then all of a sudden this stupid bloody thing just headed straight down the cliff. And we're talking straight down, like 90-degree angle, and he was going like the clappers, and the thing started tripping and over his own feet because he'd never been on country like that before. And I don't know how we made it to the bottom, but I think I walked out of that trek the last hour and a half, and I was not getting on his back again. And it was pretty rough terrain too, and I was like, no, I'll lead this bugger out. And I was ready to put a bullet in him. He was a pretty horse, but he didn't have much between his ears, that's for sure.
How do you train a horse to trust you, and what have those lessons taught you about life off the saddle?
Teaching a horse to trust you. I think first you got to trust the horse. You can't sort of force a 600-pound animal to do what you want to do. We would like to think we can, but most definitely at the start, training a horse, you got to build that trust between you both, and then you've got to get to that point where you say to yourself, hey, do I trust him enough now to take those next steps and put my life in his hands, pretty much, because once you're on the back of an animal that big, you're not in charge. You think you are, definitely think you are, but they'll prove you wrong, so you don't get too cocky. But yeah, in life though, I think when you're working with horses and then you translate that to people, especially in the mahi that I work in, you learn people can speak, animal can't. And sometimes you've got to look past those words that people tell you and look at their body language and what it is that they're actually doing. It tells you a whole different story. And horses are like that. They don't lie, and their bodies most definitely don't lie. So if they're uncomfortable, they'll tell you. And people are the same, really. If they're uncomfortable, their body language will tell you that. So I think I read a lot of people's bodies and sort of look past the words that they're telling you, really, and look at the person as a whole.
If someone's never been on a trek before, what's one thing they should know before hopping on the saddle?
Hold on. I've actually said that to a few people. I've taken a few people for treks, and most of my horses, I think they're pretty good horses. Again, I trust them though, so I know their little quirks and their little ins and outs. And people are like, "Oh, let's go for a ride." And says, "Hey, have you ridden before?" And yeah, I've ridden before. My mum took me to some random horse trekking where I went round and round circle in a little pen. I know how to ride a horse. Oh, okay then. So I pretty much say to them, this is stop, but don't pull too hard because it'll back up. And this is left and this is right. And the rest of it is just make sure that your belly button's pointing at their ears. And that's pretty much so you can balance on the horse. And if you get in trouble, look for my horse's butt and ride up it because we'll stop you. And that's pretty much it, really. I'm like, let's go, No point doing all the baby steps. May as well just jump in the saddle and go for a ride.
Horses and mental health. Big kaupapa. How do horses help people heal, build confidence, or find calm when life's a bit rough?
So the role that I work in, I'm a kaupapa Māori mental health and addiction kaimahi for our local rohe. And with horses, I think, helping with your mental health, you have to learn to be quiet. You have to learn to be calm because you're setting the precedent for the day. So if you're going to be around that horse and you're going to be all over the show and think you're the he-man, or, think you're better than this or that, or even if you're really angry, that horse is going to be a reflection of what you show them. And so you need to centre yourself and you need to find your calm. And when you do that around the horses, then they'll calm down, they'll approach you, they'll mimic you. And it's quite important because I think that what it does is it actually makes you be a little bit more aware of who you are in that moment. Sometimes in life we can get a little bit carried away and we don't actually realise that we're quite exasperated in our movements, and that can come across as intimidating to some people. You do that around a horse, the horse will show you that back, and that can be pretty scary. Again, they're a lot bigger than you. So you need to be cool, calm and collected. I think, horses are quite healing.
What role do you reckon horse trekking could play for rangatahi or whānau struggling with stress or ho'ora? Could it be a real outlet?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, the horses are a reflection of what you bring. So the skills that you learn just by having to reset yourself and calm yourself down in moments, and that's the first step to get that relationship with you and your horse, part of that trust building. Once you get in the saddle and then you're off and about and the places you go, and you'd never see that from the back of a quad or in a truck or even by foot. Like the views from where you're at and just the absolute feeling that you get when you're there, the healing that comes with that's just, there's no words for it. There really isn't.
Looking back, what's the one trek that sticks out in your mind as the best ride of your life?
A trek that sticks out to me? Oh, man, I've been so many places. They've all been amazing in their own way. The different people, different scenery, different challenges. But I think the biggest ones for me are the ones that I do on my own. I spend so much time in the Rangatawa bush. I could map that place out for you blindfolded on a piece of paper with every track and every little offshoot of the tracks and what's coming up next. And, watch that puddle. It might look like it's ankle deep, but you're going to end up belly deep, if you step right too quickly. Because it's a healing place and it changes all the time. You go up on a sunny day, middle of summer, and it gets you out of the sun and it's nice and cool and calm with a little bit of a breeze and the birds are singing. And then you go up there middle of winter after a storm and the whole tracks have changed and they're covered in snow and the areas are flooded that you'd never have seen wet before. So I think that's pretty magical when you're on your own. It's just you and your horse, you and your mate.
And on the flip side, what's the one that nearly had you swearing off horses forever?
That one's actually a recent one. And I probably ended up having a big self-realisation. I think that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. I had started to get a little bit cocky, I suppose, self-inflated, that you give me any horse, I'll get it sorted. I'll ride that. If you can't ride it, then something's wrong with you. And then I ended up taking on a horse, and I'd actually been looking for this horse, a blue roan, and I wanted it over 15 hands high, and I wanted a mare. So I was not only looking for a needle in a haystack, I was looking for a teeny tiny little needle in a haystack. And I rang up a old mate because he seemed to know where all these secret horses are, and he said to me, "Yeah, Becs, come up Waitomo. My mate's got a blue roan in the back of its paddock. I'll get it for you." I asked no questions. I put the float on the truck and I drove to Waitomo, 3.5 hours. And I met him at the petrol station. He's like, follow me. And off we went out some random back country. And here was this stunning blue roan mare tethered, long rope tied to a fence. And I was like, didn't even ask the guy questions. I was like, yep, I'll take her. And he said, oh, she's never been on a float before. Nah, she'll be right. And as soon as I grabbed the rope, and I was quite away from her, and I grabbed the rope, this mare pinned her ears, showed her teeth, and lunged at me. And I thought, oh, okay. But anyway, I was already determined to get her home. Chucked her in, and she'd just got in the float, and then trot, 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 here comes this little foal around the corner. He goes, oh, yeah, by the way, she's got a foal at foot. So that foal came home too. And so then I thought, oh, I can't really do anything. Foal's only a month old. I got to let Mum feed the foal. So left her to it in the paddock and tried to be her friend. And usually I can get a horse to come round to me within a week at most. Now we're 6 months in, and this thing was still attacking me, trying to go at me. And one day I had her in the pen and I was determined. I was like, right, today's the day. Me and you are going to get over this. And I ended up lassoing her because she was running free and I couldn't get close enough, and got the rope around her neck. And as soon as she hit the end of that, she just faced me, charged, and I gave her a whack on the nose. Like, no, we're not having that, darling. And then I thought we were doing great. She was doing everything I asked, and I thought, man, we're making great progress. And then I did the one thing which I never do, and I decided to walk away from her, and I still had the rope. I was holding it. So she was walking behind me, and I took that as a win. I'm like, yeah, man, this mare's following me. She's hooked on, like, we're going to do this. And I got to the gate, and I sort of bent down because I went to pick up a stick. And as I stood up, I was standing up, she just lunged at me with both knees raised, and she kneed me in the back and came straight down on top of me. They call it a stallion roll. And she grabbed my shoulder with her teeth, and she stood up with still holding on to my shoulder with her mouth, and managed to fling me from one side of the pen to the other. And this was a 50-foot pen, and I hit the wall on the other side. And as I stood up, she was coming at me again. And luckily, my husband was there, and he threw something at her before she could get there, because I wasn't even on my feet, and sort of managed to stop her in her tracks. And I remember standing up, and I thought, shit, what the hell just happened there? It never happened to me in my life, not to that extent. And I remember looking her in the eye, and I thought, yeah, no, you're broken. You know, something's happened that we can't come back from. And I was actually ready to shoot her, because I thought to myself, I can't even give you to anyone. I can't sell you. I can't take that responsibility that you're going to hurt somebody. If I can't get close enough to you, no one else is. And luckily for her, a really good friend of mine, she breeds. And I had to say this mare was a really good mummy. Her foal was amazing. So there was definitely a good nature about her somewhere. And I actually spoke to my friend, I'm shooting that, so-and-so. And she said, no, bring her to me. I will promise you I won't hassle her, you know. And I took her word, because we've known each other for a while. And she actually put her in with her stallion, and she ended up being one of her main mares. She followed the other horses up to the pens. She gave her 3 foals, and all of them were blue roan. And my friend actually rang me up with her last foal, and she said, hey, mate, she's just had her foal. It's a little blue filly. Do you want it as an exchange? But by then my life had sort of taken a different turn, and I thought, oh, I'd so love that, but no. But yeah, that horse got a second lease of life, but yeah, she definitely humbled me very, very quickly.
If your horse could talk, what's the cheekiest thing it'd say about you?
Oh, not her again. Why is she jumping around like a lunatic? Oh, God, it'd probably say, oh, here's that woman again. Jeez, what, she thinks I look good purple. Oh, you just wait. I'm just going to rip this cover to shreds because I don't even need a cover. Oh, no, now she wants to put a hackamore on my head because, oh, that's so much gentler. But she has no idea that I can't breathe when she pulls on that bloody thing. I don't know. My horse would have a lot to say, I'm sure. Oh, look, there she comes, look, dressed like a cowboy again with those leather straps, flapping around, tickling me on my puku when we ride, and then she wonders why I'm going to do a big buck halfway down the track.
Big shout-out for the core re-raw Becs. Mean yarns about life in the saddle, the good, the bad, and the slightly embarrassing. Big me-he for showing us how horses aren't just for riding. They're for healing, for growing, and for keeping us humble when we think we're the boss. For all you cuzzies watching, if you haven't been on a trek yet, give it a go. Might just find the horse teaches you more than you could ever teach it. That's us for this episode of Bush Yarns. I'm Neville Thistlebark. Stay cheeky, stay wild, and remember, never stand behind a horse unless you're ready to run, just like your uncle.